As we continue our little journey through the Port Huron High School yearbooks of yesteryear, I'd like to show you something that, well, most people don't look at in the yearbook, and it's usually found in the back of the yearbook, although in some of the early yearbooks it was found in the front of the yearbook. And that is the advertisement put in the yearbook by the local merchants of the area. Although we didn't think much of them as students, these ads certainly helped to defray the cost of printing these yearbooks. And as a historian, I really enjoy looking at old ads because I always find something new I didn't know. For example, I didn't know that there were 8 brothers that ran a shoe store downtown. It was called the Brophy Brothers, and they sold both men and women's shoes, as you can see by this ad. The latest styles at $3, $3.50, and $4. It was located at 211 Huron Avenue, which today would be, well, right about here. I also found this in one of the yearbooks. It's a Metropole Hotel that's set on the northeast corner of Huron Avenue and McMorran, or at that time McMorran was called Broad Street. And one of their biggest features at their advertising is running water, so you know this was quite a while ago. At one time it was also called the New Pacific Hotel, and if you recall, the original Pacific Hotel or Pacific House used to sit where the old Woolwer store was, on the corner of Grand River and Huron Avenue. But the folks of my generation remember it as the Greyhound bus station. And you can see it in the background behind these vehicles. Horse and buggy and a bus. I think maybe the horse and buggy was going to a parade. Also notice that there's another hotel in this building, and that was the Edison Hotel. That was there at the same time the bus station was. Of course, that building is now gone, and that corner looks like this today. Something else I found in the yearbook was this ad here from J.C. Penney. Now, I know most of us remember J.C. Penney being on Huron Avenue, but before that it was on Military Street in the 900 block. And this was a time when J.C. Penney was really expanding. 100 new stores just this spring. Notice it says a store with a yellow front. All the early J.C. Penney signage was a bright yellow with black lettering, and you can see it in this picture here. This is a more modern store, but they still kept the old signage. This is a screenshot from the Penney store on Huron Avenue, and you can see it also has the yellow background with the black lettering. And this was taken from a home movie in 1942. This is the inside of the J.C. Penney store on Military Street. James Cash Penney, or J.C. Penney, as we come to know him. He bought his first store when he was about 27 years old and expanded from there. James Cash Penney learned about faith and business from his father, who served as the pastor of a small primitive Baptist church in Hamilton, Missouri, and struggled to make a living off the family farm. At age 8, young Jim was told he would have to start buying his own clothes and earning his own money. Life was tough, his father said, and success only came through hard work and long hours. But things would turn out all right, he was told, if he just followed the golden rule, treating others with fairness and respect. That's James' mother holding the young child, and that's his father with the beard. And that's James standing in between. The first stores that Mr. Penney owned weren't called J.C. Penney stores. They were called the Golden Rule, which was a carryover from the company he worked for before. While he recognized that the Golden Rule was a slogan of good publicity value, James says it was a poignant link with my father's and my mother's ideals and injunctions. In his business practices, he believed that with a basic aim of making money, he could still serve the larger community with fair values and honest dealings. He was about 27 when he bought that first store in a mining town with a population of about 1,000. Other stores and 21 saloons in the little town offered credit. A penny store was cash only. He felt he served the community better by keeping them from becoming indebted. The business incorporated in 1913 as the J.C. Penney and Company Incorporated. The number of men Penney hired and trained grew larger over each year and formed the basis of his company. Penney always called his employees associates. These men became manager partners in the new stores and also shared in the profits. One of the manager's jobs for each store was to find another honest and hard-working man and train him as manager for another new store. Penney's goal was not to have a chain of stores, but to have a chain of good men. J.C. Penney's business expanded quickly. More than 1,000 stores were launched in the Roaring '20s, and the growth even continued during the Depression. But Penney's own fortunes were not so bright. While the company prospered, he lost a bundle that he had invested in banks and real estate. An old friend convinced him to enter a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. The rest and medical attention did him good, but there was another event that restored him spiritually. One morning he awoke too early for breakfast and was wandering the corridors when he heard a hymn he remembered from childhood. Be not dismayed, whate'er betide, God will take care of you. All you need He will provide. God will take care of you. Following the sound, he stumbled upon a chapel filled with worshiping doctors and nurses. Someone read a scripture passage. Come unto me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. It was a moment of clarity for the hard-working entrepreneur. He had been striving all his life to honor God with his business, but now it was time to rest in the Lord's grace. At that time, something happened to me which I cannot explain, he said later. It was a life-changing miracle, and I've been a different person ever since. I saw God in His glory and planned to be baptized and join a church. The J.C. Penney stores bounced back from the Depression. Nationwide, the Penney Company continued its rapid growth 50 years after its humble beginnings, topping 1,600 stores and a $1 billion sales mark in 1951, a financial accomplishment that Penney had long predicted. J.C. Penney stores also surpassed Woolworth that year to become the nation's third largest department store in sales, behind Sears and Montgomery Ward's. Over the years, James Cash Penney gave away much of his money to charities, churches, different endeavors. One of the most interesting endeavors was this one. In 1922, J.C. Penney purchased 120,000 acres of farmland in Florida. He intended to develop a model farming community structured similarly to the J.C. Penney department store chain. Just as chain directors held stock in the company, farmers would earn interest in Penney farms by raising crops and purchasing additional interest in the land with the proceeds of their labor. In this application for the farm settlers, there's two questions I thought were interesting. One, church membership. Are you a part of a church? And two, do you attend church? But there was more to Penney Farms than just farming. J.C. Penney chose to also make this the site for another of his philanthropic endeavors, the J.C. Penney Foundation Memorial Community. This retirement community was built especially for retired ministers and other Christian workers and their wives. The community included 22 furnished apartment buildings, along with the Penney Memorial Chapel. The community was dedicated to the memory of J.C. Penney's parents. Though his faith was individualistic, Penney had a strong commitment to Christian principles, and he tried to incorporate these principles in his business. He said too many Christians, rich and poor and in between, have separated their spiritual lives from their business lives. In a way, Penney was conducting a grand experiment, testing his hypothesis that the Christian commitment to love others could be played out in one's entire life, including one's daily work. James Cash Penney died in New York City, February 1971, at the age of 95. Mr. Penney was an extraordinary entrepreneur. He instilled integrity and honesty and fairness into the retail business. He trained the employees to be the best they could be. One of those employees was Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. Today, J.C. Penney is in a financial crisis. They're closing stores right and left, and bankruptcy is being mentioned as a possible solution. I'm just glad that Mr. Penney isn't around to see it. All right, where was I? Oh yes, this ad. Wow, how did I get all of that out of this little ad? I think I got sidetracked again. Let's continue on through this yearbook. All right, continuing on, here's another ad that was put out by the Sturmer hardware store. This was during the war years. And it says, we must grow larger crops to feed our boys over there. This requires more and better garden tools, and it goes on to tell about the different type of tools. I'm sure there's many of us that remember our families having victory gardens wherever we could make the space in our yard. I know we had one when we lived on Elk Street. And I think many of us remember the Sturmer hardware, at least in my age group, on Military Street. If you recall in an earlier video, I told you that they had more than one yearbook per year, and they especially had these Christmas yearbooks. And these Christmas yearbooks were actually a boon for advertisers because, well, they could see immediate revenue if the students bought a present for their family from their establishment. These candies were sold at the Union Hotel newsstand. The newsstand, of course, was right inside the hotel, but they had many businesses. I shouldn't say many, but they had some businesses that were located on the first floor, even a grocery store. And later on, this is where Coney Island would be located on the first floor of this building. Here's an ad from the Valentine Dry Good Company, what many of us remember, although I think we remember it looking like this, and when this ad was placed, it probably looked, well, more like this. Here's an advertisement for Springer and Rose men's clothing that was on Huron Avenue, and here's a very old picture of the inside of that store. Wow, look at those hats. And up above, look at the trolley. This is one of the first stores that had the trolley that, well, those were the buckets you see along here, and they went along a cable, and they went up to the cashier, which you can see at the very end of the picture here. And the cashier would make change and send it back down the trolley. So a pretty neat contraption. It was in several other stores too, but this one's interesting. Here's an ad for the Asman florist. At the time, in this ad, they were on Huron Avenue, but the greenhouse was up on Holland and Gratiot, the southeast corner. And we used to go by it all the time when we went to Lakeside Beach, but it was there a long time. In this photograph here, you can see that Gratiot was still a dirt road and there were streetcars running. Here's an advertisement for the Arcade Theater that was on Military Street, the home of the best vaud. Vaud? Where's the rest of it? Oh, down below. Ville, vaudeville, and moving pictures. And here's another ad stating the home of moving pictures and illustrated songs, open every day from 2 to 11. This is a great picture of Military Street looking north. That's the Military Street Bridge you see in the background, and on the east side of the street you can see the signage for the Arcade Theater. Well, where did the time go? I guess I'll just have to save the rest for another video. So join me then.